Hey, my name is Bill Werde. I'm the editorial director for Billboard. Billboard Magazine, Billboard.com, Billboard.biz, and if I'm supposed to know anything, I'm supposed to know a little bit about what goes on in the music business and what goes on with music. And so I thought today that since there was a cross-section of different sort of cultural commerce leaders here in the audience, that I'd put forth the theory that the music industry is a little bit of the canary in the coal mine by virtue of file size, by virtue of the ubiquitousness of music. When the digital revolution happened, the music industry was the first one to shit the bed. In order to properly contextualize the conversation that we're about to have, I promised I would try not to swear too much. That's one, you guys can keep score. In order to properly understand the conversations that we're going to have here today over the next hour, I want to take just 3 or 4 minutes and kind of take you through the music business, where it's been, where it is now, and where it's likely going. This is a gratuitous slide in which I subtly remind you to follow me on Twitter. So, starting shortly after World War II, people listened to music on vinyl albums. It was shortly after World War II because after World War II, Americans had the resources, they had money, and they had the materials again. And vinyl records started becoming very popular because of this new craze called rock and roll music. We fast forward, we get to cassette albums, and suddenly music is more portable. It still sounds like crap, but it's more portable. And you can see with each curve, you get a little bit higher. Now this is the CD, and you can see we're progressing through time. And this period right here, this big giant spiral, that's what the music business, the recorded music business, mind you, likes to refer to as awesome awesomeness. This is where people are going out and repurchasing all the music they already own at $17 a pop. This is at the peak of this moment, right? That very, very tip-top peak, that's the teen pop explosion. That's the Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, NSYNC. Very good, an NSYNC fan in the audience. You can't be any happier at this moment in time if you work in the recorded music business, because you've got these dying, passionate fans for these boy bands and Britney and Christina, and all they can do is go to a record store, you remember record stores, and spend $18 to buy the album. And then you know what happens right at that peak moment? Napster happens. And so here we are. This is the sale of CDs, and you can kind of see the effect that the digital revolution had on the sale of CDs. It wasn't pretty. I think, staying true to my role as the canary in the coal mine, I'll tell you that there's a couple of things that we all learned from the recorded music business during this period of time, and the most important one, since we only have a little bit of time here today, is that you cannot fight the current. One thing you may notice about all 3 of these cycles is that once you hit your peak moment and you start going down, you never start going back up again. So you can either adapt and figure out awesome things you can do with that current, or you can shit the bed. Number 2. That was ironic. So, I got here late and they told me that people laughed at Eric Schmidt's jokes, and that made me feel really good. Because Eric Schmidt is a brilliant man, but he is not Steve Martin. So here we have digital album sales, and we can see there's still a pretty big gulf, and we can see that digital album sales didn't quite take off the way some of these other formats took off, right? The curve isn't as quick, people are a little slow on the uptake. But this is why I think the music business is actually positioned to be a canary in the coal mine and not just a bunch of people buried at the bottom. Because when we add in track equivalency sales, so we take 10 tracks and we consider that the volume of an album, now suddenly, in 2010 and today, in fact, we've hit the break-even point, right? Now, granted, it's a break-even point that's much lower than where we were, where the music business was 10, 12 years ago, but it's a floor. It's something you can build on. Now, that break-even point doesn't take into consideration all the new ways people are making money since the digital revolution began. So you've got live music. In the same 10, 12 years that the recorded music industry has been in a free fall, live music has actually grown, and grown pretty steadily with a couple of dips here or there. People are making more money from touring. People are making more money from merch. And I think probably the biggest shift that has gone on is that once upon a time, people put out an album and toured to support it, and now people put out music to support their tour. Spotify, services like Spotify, Mog, Vivo, YouTube. What's interesting is that just a few years ago, iTunes was basically responsible for 70, 80, 90% of a record label's digital revenue. And today, if you talk to someone at a record label, what you'll find out is that digital revenue has become roughly 40 to 50% of a typical label's revenue in recorded music. And of that 40 to 50%, as much as 40 or 50% is now not coming from iTunes. And that diversification is really important news, really good news for the health of the recorded music business. And for the health of everyone. Competition is a good thing. But if you want to talk about the power of YouTube and the power of these platforms, I want to use a little example. How many people, by a quick show of hands, know the song Gangnam Style? So most of you. I'm shocked, by the way, that so many of you haven't heard the song Gangnam Style, but I will not publicly ridicule you at this moment. How many people here know the song Whistle by Werde? So decidedly fewer. So what's interesting about this to me are these numbers. Whistle by Werde was the #1 song on FM radio in all formats last week. It was played almost 20,000 times. That's 3,000 times a day in the United States. That's amazing. That's like a great, great song. Psy's Gangnam Style, in the last 2 months, has been played 220 million times, or 3.4 million times a day. That is the opportunity that is created by the democratizing platforms such as YouTube, right? You make a better product, you make a better video, you make something amazing, people share it, people see it. Brand deals have gone up. Pepsi, Coke, Chevrolet, Heineken, all these labels that are spending all this money on music. Film and TV syncs have gone up. Mad Men, Breaking Bad, X Factor, all these shows that use music, right? This is what's happened since recorded music took its nosedive. Kickstarter. You're going to hear from Julia Nunes in just a moment. But she put some great videos, some great songs on YouTube, wound up with millions of people checking out those videos. Put up a Kickstarter campaign, wanted to raise $15,000, raised $75,000. Pandora, and at the center of all of these is the artist with a different kind of leverage point than the artist had before recorded music hit the skids. Because in the recorded music in the old model, if you were a really, really superstar artist, you might generate 20% of the revenue that was created from selling your albums. And today, in a lot of these opportunities, the artist is much more the partner.